Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Terry Lammers on the line, and he's managing member over at Innovative Business Advisors. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Adam. How are you doing today?
Oh man, all is well, and I'm excited to get into our topic today: how to use acquisitions to fuel your growth. A lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs out there. Super interesting topic. But before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So, how did you get started in your career and in business?
Yeah, so I always tell people in my former life, I owned a wholesale fuel and lubricants company. So we delivered gasoline, diesel fuel, motor oils to farmers, excavators, trucking companies, manufacturing, stuff like that. We delivered the fuel and actually branded my own brand of lubricants at one point. It was in that business that I had the opportunity to buy 11 other companies. It was a family-owned business, so I grew up in it. I took it over in 1991, and over the next 20 years, bought 11 different companies and grew the company from $750,000 a year in sales to over $42 million when I sold the company in 2010. After going through that, I sat around the house for about 3 months, and my wife told me I had to get a job. So apparently our house is a marital asset that I'm not allowed to be at during the day. So I did commercial banking for 3.5 years, which, as painful as it was a very good experience because it taught me, obviously, in growing a company to that size, and I mean, we had a $4 million line of credit and all that fun stuff. It taught me the other side of the fence, so I got a really good understanding of what banks are looking at when, they're doing loans and stuff like that. So it was very interesting. After 3.5 years, I kind of got my entrepreneurial spirit back. And in 2014, my partner and I started Innovative Business Advisors. And we basically do three things. We help people buy and sell companies. Target client has a company with a value between 1 and 20 million. I'm a CVA, Certified Valuation Analyst, so that's a national designation. So we do a lot of business valuations, and that's actually how I sold my business, and I valued it. And, said, wow, if you can sell it for that, sell it. So we do a lot of business valuations, and we have a coaching platform called CEO to CEO, so Chief Everything Officer to Chief Executive Officer. And within that program, we're taking clients, basically doing three things. We're taking clients on a deep dive into their financial statements and making sure they're readable, relevant, and correct, and teaching them 8 to 10 key financial ratios that really help them keep a pulse on their company. We work with them on their bankability and teaching them, how bankable they are, because likely if they need to grow the company to meet, their financial needs, if they sell it someday, or retirement needs, they may need to borrow money. And then the third thing is we talk to them about non-financial things that can not only affect the value of your company, but can really determine whether it's sellable or not. So I think most entrepreneurs, there's a statistic out there that 85% of their wealth is wrapped up into their company, the value of their company. So it becomes very important if you're going to sell that company to fund your retirement that you have a sellable company.
That's awesome. And I think it was once told me, I forgot which one of my mentors said that. They said, if you can't sell it, you don't have a business. You're still operating. And I'm like, oh, I get it. So that's always in the back of my head when building things. And I think that's a great transition. I mean, let's get into, I think it's a great option, and I don't think it's one that people explore often enough. And I think part of the reason is just lack of knowledge. So let's get into it. Fueling growth through acquisition. So you want to begin?
Yeah, so, everybody always talks about selling your business, right? But nobody's really talking about buying businesses. And, talk about statistics. The baby boomers are retiring. There's going to be I think the number is like a $13 trillion transfer of wealth in the next decade. So what does that mean? So that means there's going to be some great opportunities to buy businesses. And if you're really there's two different ways to look at it. You're in a corporate job and you wanted to own your own business, there's going to be opportunities to go out there and buy a business. But, the other thing that just baffles me with helping people and sell their businesses and talking to the other potential buyers is they're not looking at the opportunity to buy another business that's doing the same thing they are to grow their business. And that's exactly what I did with Tri-County Petroleum, my former company, was we primarily, of course we grew organically, but we was also growing through acquisitions. We have an HVAC company for sale, and I talked to a gentleman, possible buyer, the other day, and he kind of flew off the cuff and said, why would I buy a business that's 100% in the geography that I already cover? And I'm like, why wouldn't you buy a business that's 100% in the geography you already cover? Because I think the general mindset is that just let the guy go out of business and take his customers. Well, maybe you'll get 10% of the customers, but you're not going to get all of them. So why not pay the guy a fair price for his company? And in my experience, when I was buying companies, if that guy goes out and says, hey, buy from, I sold a company to Adam. Adam's a great guy. Give him a shot. 95% of those customers will buy from you. And then, when we're valuing companies, we're typically doing a financial valuation. We're valuing the current cash flow of that company. So let's just use our HVAC example. If you go to buy another HVAC company, and especially if it's in the territory you're already covering, think of all the operating expenses that you can eliminate. So, the company I got right now has like 900. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, they have like $900,000 in gross profit and cash flowing about $200,000 a year. So there's $700,000 in operating expenses there. If you can cut out $200,000 or $300,000 of those operating expenses, now the strategic value to you of that company is probably about 3 times what the financial valuation of that company is. It's a great way to grow your company.
Man, that's really exciting. So you gave the HVAC as an example. Are there any interesting industries that you see, just from your vantage point, I know you're keeping a pulse on this, that you think are just ripe in a lot of areas based on this transition of wealth you spoke of?
Oh boy, good question. How do you narrow it down? Because maybe
there's just so much opportunity. I know it's broad.
So I think the way I would change that question maybe a little bit is, if you was going to go after something, what would you go after? So I would tell you to go after something that has recurring revenue and not a business that's transactional. Recurring revenue, insurance companies, financial advisors, the HVAC business, no matter what the economy is doing, if your air conditioner or heater goes out, you got to get it fixed, right? Go after companies that have recurring revenue. I look at myself and starting innovative, and it's like, why would you want to start a brokerage company? If I sell a company, now I got to go find them to sell, right? It's transactional. So, kind of laugh at myself, but, so go after a company that has strong recurring revenue. I really I wish I knew more about the HVAC business. I think that's a really neat market, and there's a lot of little players in there, and I think it's ripe for a roll-up.
That's awesome.
For people.
So, if a business so they're listening to this right now and they're saying, they haven't really considered acquisition as a big way to fuel their growth. How does a business know if that could be a right path for them? If they're ripe for that thought process?
Wow, that's a great question, and I don't know what company wouldn't be right for that process. But I think, part of the answer is, what's your bankability? Are you making enough money that you could go out there and buy a company? And that's why we include that in the CEO to CEO program. Because if you're going to grow by acquisition, you got to be a bankable person. And I always like to look back on my prior business. The first couple of companies I bought was really difficult because the bank doesn't want to consider the cash flow of the company that you're buying into your debt service coverage ratio, your ability to pay. So once I got to a point where I was bankable enough to buy the next company without considering any of the income that I'm going to get from that company, then things took off like crazy. And I was able to buy one company right after the other. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. And, that's where I think this program is just invaluable, because we'll teach you what your bankability is and work with you on finding the banks that can help you. Whether you got to go through SBA, Small Business Administration, it's a great way to go. It costs a little bit more, but it'll get you there. It's just very important. And picking the right bank, I talk about that in my book. People think a bank is a bank. Well, it's not. Different banks focus on different things. So if you got told no by one bank, ask them why, for one. And two, maybe you went to the wrong bank. The bank I worked at, after selling the oil company, for an example, had a moratorium on construction companies. If you was a construction company, it didn't matter how much money you had, it wasn't going to lend to you, because they got bunked on a lot of construction stuff down in Florida. They also didn't want any non-owner occupied real estate. So say like a strip mall. Mm-hmm. You own it, but you don't occupy the building. So they didn't want non-owner occupied real estate, because they felt like in their portfolio of loans, they was already heavy on that. So, that's another important part about considering your bankability. Are you at the right bank?
That's awesome. So, Terry, if somebody is listening to this and they do want more information on innovative business advisors or your coaching program, what's the best way for them to follow up?
You can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook. The website is www.innovativeboyapple.com. And there's plenty of information on there. You can also download a copy of my book, You Don't Know What You Don't Know. Byline is everything you need to know to buy or sell a business. So it kind of tells the story of my past and building your team of advisors and buying and selling companies and building value in them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, Terry, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background over at Innovative Business Advisors. And where can they download your book again?
It's on Amazon and Kindle. You can also click a link on our website for it. And I would also throw out there, if you need a speaker for anything, I'm happy to do that.
Man, that's great stuff. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, do all those great things we do to support our podcasters. I really do appreciate it. And Terry, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. Great. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in.
All right, so I'll cut the audio there. Man, I love your story. I love your style. I like what you're doing. It's really cool. I like the coaching program aspect, too. It's really good. I think a lot of people miss that, but it's good. So quick side note on my end. So I'm going to shoot the audio over to my team. They'll do all the editing, all that other good stuff. And they're pretty quick. So this might be live by the end of this week. At the latest, it'll be live maybe early next week. When it does go live, you'll get an email from either my assistant, Julius, or Diana. One of those two will send you an email. That's an important one. It'll have, 8 to 10 links on it. It'll have links to your iTunes, your Spotify. It'll have, you'll also get a bunch of videos. So it'll have a full YouTube video, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, more videos and social media content than you ever thought you needed, wanted, or cared about, Terry. It's on its way to your inbox. So you can feel free to do that, do what you like with that, and use them as you like. If you need anything else, just reply to that, and Diana or Julius will be sure to get taken care of. But thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, no problem. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
So the book, You Don't Know What You Don't Know, we've actually trademarked that name.
Yeah.
You Don't Know What You Don't Know. So our goal, I'm noticing on your website, you co-authored books with people. We're kind of wanting to go down the same path. So really, it's probably a two-pronged question.
Yeah.
How do you do your co-authoring? Because maybe, even though I got my own mind, would it make sense for me to look at the possibility of co-authoring with you? And then two, how has that worked for you, and how do you publish your book? Do you have a publishing company, or are you self-publishing?
So I'll tell you, I guess just to be really upfront on how it all worked, I started the business, this was all organic. I wrote my own books. I did my own thing for a long time, and I was a financial advisor. So I had a practice. I wasn't huge, but I was just under $200 million under management. So I wasn't a $1 billion guy, but I wasn't exactly starving. I started my own company, did all that, and I did my first book, and I put it out, and I just had let's just say a certain talent and or thing of being able to do that. And I was on speaking tours and all this other stuff that doesn't happen when you self-publish a book. Just to be clear, this happens for nobody. Have no idea how this happened. People started coming up to me asking me to co-author books with them. I said no. I just told a bunch of people no, and the third or fourth person came up to me and asked me, and I said, well, let me figure it out. The book model, you don't, just to be clear, the way I designed my model was so that people, the authors that co-author, they essentially come out with a marketing tool that they can use. So what I mean by that is I never wanted to create books that were just for, like, you put them on your website or you put them somewhere here, but we don't print any or nobody sees them. It's more just for branding, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. I'm not saying that's bad, but for me, I always wanted the information to get out there. So what I did, and if you do choose to go down that path with your brand, what I did, which I think was a little bit of the secret sauce, is I basically give the books to the authors really close to at cost. I only mark them up $2 a book. So what that means is authors now have books at they're getting them for about $5 and they sell them themselves, or they can give them away for promo. They can mail them to their clients. Like, so the people I'm publishing, just to be clear, they're guys like you, guys and gals like you. I publish people that have run everything from $1 million businesses to $1 billion businesses, and I use my name on these books, so everybody's really vetted. It's not just a, hey, you want to pay to be in a book, so we let you in. It doesn't work that way. It's a completely different animal, if you will. So because of that, the quality, the consistency, and the type of book I'm able to do, I haven't really seen anybody else in the market be able to do it. But in order to do that, though, just to be clear, the infrastructure is boggling. It's mind-boggling, number one. The amount of time to vet people is mind-boggling, and the amount of money, the margins, they're not really there. So meaning, as a business, the reason I do it is because I have let's say on the talent side of things, that's where I get larger money from, like Bank of America or things like that sponsor me. But just to be clear, the only reason I'm able to do that is because I don't have any other products. I put myself 100% in media space. Bank of America wouldn't write me a check if I was still a financial advisor. So I kind of cut off one side to say, hey, I'm all in on this other one. So that's why I'm able to do what I do. As just a model overall, I've seen people try to emulate it in the past, and normally what will happen is they get through one book, maybe they get through two. It doesn't sound like rocket science, right? You have a bunch of people, you bring them together, you put them in a book, but what happens is they don't usually last past that second book because they realize that the amount of effort work it takes. Think about it, like just as yourself, managing contracts, and I don't mean this, but egos. So you think about publishing a bunch of business leaders where everybody has their own opinions and this and that, and to be as draconian as I have to do in steering the ship, it's not an easy thing to do. And just throwing it out there, it's a very difficult thing to get these books out. But I've just gravitated towards it, and I love doing it. So, and I have managed to make it profitable, mostly from corporate sponsorships. My speaking, I was already getting speaking fees, so I can't say it's done that. And then the podcast. But my podcast is more like a network. So meaning most people have a podcast. I have a network. I released last week 60 episodes. So my model is very different. My team this year will put out, between the aggregators and everything else, maybe 50,000 pieces of content. So that being said, my model is very different. If you were to want to go down that model, of creating the books, I just would it's not again, not rocket science. It's not easy to do, but it's not rocket science. It's just more so the logistics, all the contracts, all the whatever. You have 20 people in a book. Now you have 20 different contracts you have to send out. You have to, because it's an actual publishing contract, right? So logistics wise, when you go down the line and all that stuff, you really have to have a legit supply chain established, which took me 3 years now, or 2.5 years now how to do it. To now it's like, okay, now we have a machine, but that's 3 years later, and that's hundreds and hundreds of hours in media content like behind. I'm just giving you the backstory because you're a sharp guy, and some people look at it from outside, and then they're like, oh yeah, we'll do that, and I'm saving you a lot of time and a lot of headaches there.
Trust me, we're going through it now. Because, like I said, the goal, we have the second book canned up and ready to go. And, the goal is to get several books out there, but it's not cheap. We're still trying to figure out the marketing of it. Do you maintain ownership of the content, even when somebody co-authors with you?
So ours, the way we have it done is in terms of the contract, so it's a 2,000 word. So what people like you have used the book for in the past, not saying this would be your thought process, but this is what they've done, is they published a watered down version, if you will. So it's because the chapter can only be 2,000 words because we don't want to publish dictionaries. So what they normally do is they'll do a more watered down chapter, if you will, or abbreviated version of concepts, and the idea is to use that to push leads and or to cross brand and cross promote their primary content and primary book. And the reason why that makes sense is, and I know you know book metrics, so to put it in perspective, for our books, we're probably publishing, or printing, I should say, because that's the only thing that matters to me is the amount of books that are printed. We're probably printing minimum of 10,000 books per edition, like minimum, and that's year one. So the amount of books and the circles of people that we actually have the books in, that's different. So that nobody else is doing or can do, in my opinion, based off of the way we've done it. So I'll just give you one example. So I believe I told you an example of the former CFO of Coffee Bean. So that was in one of our books. So she's run huge companies. She bought 500 books, and at Christmas time, she mailed them to her closest friends and mailing list. Like, you can't get somebody to do that. I don't care how much money you give them. Not going to happen. So just to give you an idea, the type of people that have the books in their hands, from what we're doing, it's just completely different on the back end, I guess I'd say, and the quantity, the numbers, all that other thing. But this is again quite a bit of time after. So to continue to answer your question, the content, I'm not really actually concerned about that. The contract is going to say, yes, it says that you turn over the right to that chapter, but the difference between this and something else is that this is under my name. So what that means is, do you think I would ever, in a million years, want somebody in a book with my name on it that didn't 100% want to be in the book? You don't want to be in the book, I'll give you back your check and your content. I don't why would I ever and number one, why would I do that? It's not XYZ Publishing Company, but number two, and I don't mean this in any ego sense of the word or capacity, but just get out there. Last year I did 1,000 podcast episodes. This year I'll do probably closer to 4,000 episodes this year. And our numbers are already hitting there in terms of, and 50 or 60,000 pieces of content. I mean, whose story is going to be, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like just viability, bankability. I'm more worried about people that are going to come back and want to sue me or something else, or who knows that I published, than the opposite. Because you know what happens if things really take off, then it can get kind of interesting. And not saying that's going to happen, but in all reality, just based off of the way media works, you get how people are sometimes. It changes.
Yep. Oh, great story, Adam. Congratulations. That's awesome.
So feel free to, ping me or anything else if you got any other follow-up questions. But, man, it's definitely been great to connect. And if I can help you in any other way, I'm definitely happy to do so. And
great. No, the only other thing that, is on my radar is, we've got Innovative. We're getting the book thing going. I'm an empty nester this year, so I am interested in doing the public speaking thing. I enjoy doing it.
That's awesome.
So if you ever come across anything like that, I can speak on a broad range of topics about, mergers and acquisitions and valuation and how that ties together, like with our CEO program, and people sticking their head in the sand and not, I got one guy tried to sell his company. It's just, he's totally involved in a company, and that's why it wouldn't sell. And I talked to him the other day, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to build my company up. Yeah, now I'll sell it. And it's like, well, we crashed and burned with that once, dude, and you haven't changed anything to make it a more sellable company. And that's what's really just sad. These guys don't know. They don't have a sellable company.
No, I get it. I get it completely. And I've seen it, and I'm actually like, so when you bring that up, I didn't say this on the recording, obviously, but in my mind, this year is when I'm finally, for my company, going to start making it sellable. And it wasn't from the standpoint of I want to sell it. What it came down to was, so some of my mentors and other people, is I didn't really understand the real viability of what I was doing. Because to me, I'm just helping people. I like interviewing them. I like publishing. And most of the stuff that I do, all of it I didn't want to do, and I said no to. Like the first co-authored book I did, I didn't have a podcast. I didn't have anything. I was just a financial advisor who put out a book, and people were asking me to do it with me, and I didn't even know what a co-authored book was. I didn't know anything about it. I literally found Chicken Soup for the Soul. And
you don't know what you don't know, right?
And I didn't know nothing. So then I put together this book, and then after I put together the book, somebody says I should do a podcast. I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing a podcast. I don't want to. Like, you could sell more books. I'm like, all right, I want to sell some more books. I'll do a podcast. Then I started going on then I did a podcast, and then people on the podcast would find out that I did books. I didn't even have a website. And then they're like, hey, I saw that book you did. I'm like, what book? They're like, the one with the other authors. We want to be in one of those. I'm like, how'd you find out about that? I'm like, so then
hilarious.
It became, and so none of this was my plan. So now the next step is that the level of, I didn't really understand the scalability of it as an actual business, but it's based off of, I guess, part of it's my pedigree in finance. So I was in finance for 14 years before so I started when I was 16 in my first firm. Before going this route, which was never the plan, but it just became more and more interesting as I got further along. But that being said, the level of author I attract and the type of author I attract, it's very unique in terms of branding and otherwise. And just the fact that banks write me checks and sponsors and stuff like that never happens. It just doesn't. Not for this space, I should say. For other spaces, yes, not for this. But so then it got me. So then some of my mentors and other people out here that I've bought, sold, and they're basically were my richest former clients. When I was managing money, they kind of saw what I was doing. I got on their radar, and they're like asking me more questions. And they're the ones who convinced me. They're like, Adam, you have a great business. And I wasn't looking at it as a business. I thought it was just, media and some other things. But when they showed me kind of the backside of the business, and I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to build a sales team. I got to do this, do that, do whatever. Like all the things I know how to do, but I didn't really, because it's just such not a typical business. Like it's not HVAC. It's not. My dad owned an auto body shop growing up, so I grew up in that type of household. So I'm from Michigan, and he's like, it's not like that. It's not an auto body shop. So in my mind, I wasn't really treating it, the financials I treated like a business, but I wasn't thinking of it in terms of scalability, market, segments, other products, all the other things you think. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed the boat on that, but it's not too late. We're just starting. But so when you say not doing it as a business, I'm in that like boat. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I have an amazing business. People are knocking down my door for this stuff and for everything else. All the numbers are up every single day, and I'm not treating it like a sellable business. Who knows? I could be partnering with Disney. Like literally, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I'm like shooting myself in the foot. Like I'm one of those guys, so I'm not laughing at them, Terry. I'm in their shoes. That's all. That's the only reason I tell you the backstory, because I messed up too.
I love it. I mean, I feel like I'm 2 years behind you. The book has been out for 2 years, but I'm a horrible marketer. But I'm starting to learn more, and I started doing these podcasts, and people are like, hey, knucklehead, you don't even have a website for your book. And why aren't you telling them to, I got questions after the end of each chapter, and that was really my aha moment of writing the book. It's like, if you know the answers to these questions, you're going to learn something. So they're like, why don't you give away the answers to the end of your book and get their email address? Now all of a sudden we have 35,000 people in our CRM system because we're learning how to capture emails. And I'm going to another guy's seminar in February. I don't know if I paid money to go to it. Hope it's not a waste, but he's supposed to help us
They're never a waste, Terry. They're never a waste. Just so you know, like other people that aren't of the traditional space or that are in the traditional space may say it's a waste, but it's never a waste. I just want you to know that you're going to pick up one thing there that's like, and I know because you're in that spot that I was at. You're like very traditional business guy. That's where I was. So to be a book guy, I used to laugh at book guys. I'm laughing at me now. I mean, I used to laugh at them because I didn't really understand what they were doing though, and how valuable they were. I didn't know. And so my old finance guys probably still look at, well, they want to be on the podcast, they want the blah, 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 but they probably still look at me like, what, this guy's selling books, and why he should be doing deals or this or that. So they're probably looking at me weird there, but I'm just saying that because I heard you say it might be a way. It's not. My first foray into any of this, I paid some guy that I met on Facebook, I think it was $15,000 to join his mastermind, and it took me into e-commerce and what they were doing on the back end of e-commerce and both the black hat, the white hat, everything in between. And when I saw the kind of money that people were making and what they were doing, I was like, man, these finance guys don't even know what these people are doing. Like, they think all this stuff is fake. It's not fake. Like, if you think about like Ty Lopez, the guy I used to see on YouTube all the time. I've been to his mansion in Beverly Hills. I've done videos for him. That's just real. Like, it's real. That money is real. These people are really making that kind of money out there. And I'm telling you firsthand because I've met a lot of them. And you got to pay to play to get in these circles, but that's like any business. So for you going to that, all I know is this. I don't even have to know the person. I don't have to know the conference. I don't have to know anything. All I know is that it wasn't cheap. And so you're going to be in a room full of a lot of other people that are just like you, who had the money for the ticket and who want to learn. And there's going to be a lot of networking going on in there. And I know you know what to do there, but I'm just saying it's never a waste. I'm excited for you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's different. You're going into new water. No, yeah, that's going to be hard too because she's not going to get that until she sees it, especially because of your last. And I'm not talking about your wife, obviously, but I just mean consider. Obviously, I wouldn't overstep my bounds, but I mean when somebody's so used to a traditional, like I used to be in a suit and tie every day. Like managing money every single day. So what do you think happened when I was no longer in a suit and tie every day and I left Beverly Hills and now I live 5 blocks from the beach in Santa Monica? People are like, Adam went crazy. It's like, no, he didn't. He's cool. You don't worry about Adam. you just keep on watching him on your phone and spending those hours.
That's
all right,
awesome,
hey Terry,
man.
I gotta jump to the next one. I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Hey, have a great day. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Keep in touch. Take care. Likewise. Bye.
Bye.